Hi all, I'm very happy to be with you online today. And what I like to share with you is a few insights and key learnings, let's say, from what happened in the European InsurTech scene over the first half of this year. So I try to extract a few KPIs, a few trends, and most of all, a few perspectives that might be interesting for the future of that industry. So let's start with maybe a very short word about Astorya VC. We are a VC firm. We raise money from insurance players to invest, to make it very quick, in InsurTech startups, though we are covering, let's say, any kind of technology that has an impact, direct or indirect, on the insurance industry. We are investing across Europe, that includes the UK and Switzerland, and we are investing very early in startup journey, meaning at seed stage, which we define as post-product. So I think that's those three major trends in our investment scope help us have a very broad understanding of what's happening right now, and most of all, what might happen in the next, let's say, 6, 12, or 18 months in the insurance technology landscape. So that's something I'd like to share with you today. So let's start with a few KPIs. So the first point is the amount of money that was investing over the first half of this year. So as you can see, it was a bit more than 2 billion euros. So if you compare with the full last year, it was over 6 billion euros. And you can see that over the last few years, investment grew year from year. I assume that this year it will be flat, or maybe it might decrease a bit due to the current situation. But anyway, the investment is here. There are many deals, and there are a lot of money coming to the market. But actually, if you take a bit of perspective, and we can compare this InsurTech investment with what was investing at the same time in FinTech, you realize that actually there was a bit more than 40 billion euros or dollars that were invested last year in FinTech, while it was only, let's say, 6 billion in InsurTech, meaning that InsurTech is interesting, but obviously it's still a very small market compared to the FinTech space. So there is a lot to do and a lot to expect in that space. That's why we are excited to invest in this area. So that's the first comparison. If you take only the European InsurTech scene, you can see that a bit more than 300 million were invested in European InsurTech startups. And if you compare that with a few KPIs, again, we can argue that this money is still limited. So the first example I can take is the IT budget, annual IT budget of BNP. They are spending a bit more than 6 billion euros every year in IT. So 360 million investing in InsurTech might appear a bit poor compared to that figures. And the other KPI I have in mind is how much Lemonade raised during its IPO. It was a bit more than 300 million euros. So it compares a bit with all the money that was invested in the first half of this year in European InsurTech startups. And if we have because I think it says something about where money is going to and what is the most exciting part of the investment side. So you can see that distribution is still ahead, though it used to be way more than that was invested in the distribution side of the value chain. Claims still limited. Price and product a bit more, I would say, and full stack, which are startup with full licenses, Airline in France, Koya in Germany, for instance. They collected a tiny part of this investment, but they are still raising a few euros as well. Now let's have a focus on a few trends that I think are the most interesting. So again, having an overview of the value chain here, I will just focus first on the full stack part because I think it's quite interesting, and say a few words about distribution, though it will be a new kind of angle that I think is interesting and that shares something new compared to everything that we had previously said around the insurance. So the first point is on full stack players. So what is interesting is that we start to see a few MGA startups trying to get the license. So it's quite interesting. So the first one that delivered that move from a broker to, let's say, a full stack player is Zigo in the UK. And earlier this year, we heard from GetSafe itself that they were applying to get the license. So again, that would be another player moving from MGA to a full stack player. So let's see what happens next. If there is any player in France, then that try to get that move. But I think it says something about those startups trying to move up into the value chain to collect more value, let's say, in the value chain, not only being the front end with the customer, but moving up towards pricing, underwriting, and price and product, let's say, more generally. So that's the first trend I wanted to highlight. The second one is on distribution, and this time, what I think is interesting, it's still direct to consumer, though it's not B2C, but it's B2SMEs. And the example I take here is Coverly in the UK that unfortunately shut down earlier this year, and they were distributing insurance product directly to SMEs. And it seems that direct to consumer is really tough business, even when your final customer or your end customer is a business itself. So I think it says something around here. So let's see how startup that try to revamp that customer segment will do and will deal with that challenge in the next months. And to conclude that very quick overview, let's spot a few trends or perspectives that I think might be interesting for the future. So here I will very quickly highlight that despite what a few people say, beyond fintech having no impact on the banking industry or financial services, I think that there were a few impacts. The major example is banks closing their branches while people are moving more and more online. So I think that this is a direct impact of how fintech are impacting the financial services in the real life. So that's an example. I mentioned two other one on that slide. And in insurance, I think that what is the major perspective, or what is the hottest, let's say, discussion that we have with most investors right now is everything around augmented insurer, what we could call enterprise software or B2B technologies. Because I think that during the lockdown period, every insurer realized that in a locked world, they would need technology to keep operating. So I think that here there is a lot of opportunities for tech players, external tech players, startups, InsurTech startups to deliver a lot of value to build tools that might be useful to insurers themselves. And I think that in the future we will see way more collaboration between startup and corporate, especially when you have a look at the market itself and you see that there is always a challenge for insurers between making things on their own or buying things on the market. I think that we have many examples of insurers trying to make it happen internally with, let's say, limited successes. So I think that we enter a new area now where insurers will increasingly look for solutions that are already available on the market, that have delivered clear results, and that will help them implement solution live very quickly. So happy to answer any question you might have, or to discuss further these trends, these KPIs, and to go a bit deeper into that direction, either, let's say, now or later in the day, or even on social network. And thanks for your time and your attention. Thanks a lot.